Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by a very special guest. Former Bemidji State women's hockey player Kara Werth joins the podcast today. Kara, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and how's everything going?
Yeah, not a problem. And everything's going well. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's a very rainy day here in Massachusetts, but, just doing schoolwork, but nothing else going on. I'm just excited for the hockey season to be starting soon.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Well, you just graduated college about a couple months ago. So, what was your graduation ceremony like, and just what have you been up to since graduating?
So we were actually fortunate enough to get a graduation ceremony. We did three different ceremonies. It was based on our major. So we would do, mine was chemistry and biology, and business was in ours. And we masked up and we sat in it was actually at the Sanford Center, the place we were able to play. And it was just like a 30-minute short ceremony where we were all socially distanced and we got pretty much the normal walkthrough and stuff like that. So it was really special to get something, especially in the middle of the pandemic. And after season, I went home to Morehead and started working in a hospital and started prepping for med school. I started studying for the MCAT and all of that, and I've been applying for a bunch of different medical schools and waiting to hear on that. And other than that, I'm just coaching with Morehead High School hockey.
Well, that's awesome. It seems like you've been pretty busy since the season ended. So, I wish you all the best applying for medical school. Is it weird being a nurse during the pandemic? Because it seems like it's very challenging just from the news stories I've been reading.
Yeah, I was a nursing assistant in Fargo, and it wasn't too bad on the floor I was in. I was on an orthopedic floor, which was nice. It was generally healthy people, but now I work as a scribe and I'm in the ER. So we see COVID quite a bit, and it's a little bit stressful, but I guess you do what you can, and that's about it. We're N95 masks and all that, so
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty much all we can do.
Yeah, no, I have a friend that's a nurse, and they were saying to me like how people don't realize how bad COVID is until you like see it in person, and just how bad it could possibly be, because some people get very, very sick from it. So it's something that I think a lot of people don't realize, just how bad it is just to get that virus, because it can take away your sense and smell, which I never knew about until they were telling me about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. We actually had a couple during our many quarantines this season. We had a couple of girls lose their taste and smell for quite a bit of months actually, which was like, I'm good. I don't want to get that.
Hmm. Was it weird now for yourself not going to college and seeing the season start already? Is it a bit odd not being involved with that anymore? Because I feel like it would be a bit weird for myself if I were in your shoes.
Yeah, I'd say so. It is pretty weird just because it was a routine thing. I think if senior year was normal, it would have been a little bit harder just because this year was honestly half of what we normally have. So I think I kind of was at peace with being done, and it was my last year, and I'm looking forward to becoming a physician and stuff. So I think it is tough, and I do miss the girls a lot, but I'm at peace with it at this point.
Yeah, and you never considered taking your fifth year, because I know that option was given to all players in Division One.
Yeah, I did, but I knew that I honestly couldn't give my all to a fifth year, and especially with the demands of D1 college hockey, it's a lot, and that's what my teammates would deserve, is me to give my all physically and mentally to the game. And I think I want to channel that energy towards medical school now. So I think that's where my path is headed.
Well, that's awesome to hear, but you're still involved with hockey of some sort. Like you just said, you're coaching your former high school team. How weird is it to be a coach and not a player for your former high school team? And how much has changed since you last left there?
It's honestly one of the most rewarding experiences. I love it. I honestly want to say I like coaching more than I like playing. It's just to be in service of the girls who are in a place that I once was, and I wish I had a mentor like that. It's honestly not too weird at all. I feel like it's the next stage in my life, and the team this year is very, very talented. And my co-coach Ryan Kraft, he played in the NHL, so it's really cool to learn from him and learn how he's developed as a coach and as a player, and how he's helping the girls out too.
Yeah, you're also learning as a coach too, which I think is something that people don't realize about being a coach as well. But one thing I've realized just talking to other coaches is just how patient you have to be with certain players when you have to watch their development. How have you tried to learn patience as a coach, being a coach now?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed different learning styles and different levels of frustration from different girls. I think just learning by experience. I don't think there's any other way to, there's no book to read, there's no thing like that. As much as I wish there was a book to read. Um, I mean, there probably is, but just like experiencing and talking with the girls and really learn what's going on in their minds, not just assuming that, oh, they're just lazy or, oh, they're just like a hothead and they're just like need to figure it out on their own. Like really learning what motivates each girl helps me to tailor my coaching style towards them.
Yeah, and they're also still kids as well. You know, they're sometimes you don't have the best day, whether it's in school or whatever. So you also have to realize that as a coach, especially in high school.
For sure.
Now let's start off talking about your career as a hockey player. So you are from Morehead, Minnesota, like you just said. How did you start playing hockey and falling in love with the sport? And just talk about growing up in that town.
Yeah. So Morehead, Minnesota, it's a huge hockey town. It's just very big sport around here. And my brother played. He's a few years older than me, and he played. So automatically, I was the little sister that just automatically did whatever he did. So I started. I actually kind of hated it, to be honest. I really didn't like it until honestly middle school, high school, and but I just kind of stuck with it because it was something that I did. But yeah, so it was huge. I put everything into it getting into high school, and yeah, it was really special to play hockey in Morehead just because everyone kind of knows about hockey and it's a really big thing around here. So that was super special to grow up in that atmosphere.
And when did you start loving the game more? Because you're saying like how you didn't really enjoy the game, you just kind of did it because you had to in a sense. So when did you start enjoying the game, and when did that love start happening for yourself? Was it like in seventh and eighth grade before you went to high school, or when it did start kind of when you were a freshman in high school?
I would say kind of in eighth grade around because I was deciding between soccer and hockey what I wanted to pursue for college. And I was honestly, I was just better at hockey. So I just pursued hockey and I kind of fell in love with the process of them like working on my mental game, working on the skills, like by myself, doing skating sessions and kind of just the whole process of becoming the best hockey player I could be. I kind of fell in love with that. And then honestly, just the natural love of the game came with it.
Now, did you have a favorite player growing up? Was it someone in the NHL, or was it a female player on the national team? Did you look up to anyone growing up, or just you didn't really watch that much hockey? You kind of just played it because I know that's the case for some players.
Yeah, growing up, I was just I always tried to be one of the boys with my brother and his friends. So it was a male hockey player. It was Kane, and
Mhm.
honestly, just because of his hands, I just that's pretty much all I heard about him. And my brother liked him, so I liked him. And yeah, I actually didn't watch too much hockey growing up. I wasn't really a fan of the game, but now seeing getting into college and seeing how important that was, I always wish that I would have done that because that hockey sense was a piece that I was missing until college. So that's definitely a huge aspect that I wish I would have gone back and done.
Oh yeah, it was fun watching Patrick Kane, especially with Team USA and his time with the Olympics. And hopefully, I get to see him play with Team USA again in next year's Olympics. But no, great player. And have you ever tried to emulate one of his shootout moves? I know he has that famous one where he kind of just glides near the goalie and just does all those like stick handling stuff and then pokes it top shelf.
Yeah. I mean, I've attempted. I've tried. I'm a defenseman. I'm not really a goal scorer as much as I want to be, but yeah, I think some other teammates would be better at that than me.
Hey, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a defenseman. Sometimes you can have a few tricks up your sleeve and surprise some players. So it really, in my opinion, I don't think it matters what position you are. I know some players and coaches feel like that's the case, but I don't.
hmm Yeah, I think I tried to be that skill player in high school, and then realized that at the Division 1 level, I didn't really need that skill. Defensemen need to be more calm and collected and be good at passing and stuff like that. So that kind of fell to the wayside. But high school, I definitely tried. I probably would have tried those moves more than in college.
Yeah, especially in the WCHA, since you're going against some of those top end players, you have to be a little more defensively minded than offensively minded because you don't want to let in so many goals.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Now, talk a little bit more about your playing experience with Morehead and what'd you take away from it when you look back on it now?
Yeah, it was really special. I wouldn't trade it for anything, especially getting into high school. Just my team, we had such a close-knit atmosphere that we supported each other no matter what, whether it was off ice, on ice, if we were doing a hard workout and stuff like that. It was just a very supportive environment. And I was fortunate enough to be a captain of the team, and I just learned how I wanted to be as a leader, which eventually helped to be a captain of Bemidji. It was really special to grow up with girls that I cared about and girls that really wanted the best for me, and I wanted the best for them. And just the atmosphere, like I said, of Morehead hockey, it's like nothing else.
Yeah, and how did Morehead help prepare you for college hockey with Bemidji?
I had a coach who actually played college hockey, which was really special. She helped with the recruiting process. She helped with things I need to work on in my game, which ultimately helped me to be recruited. And yeah, just the team atmosphere and learning how I wanted to be a good teammate helped me significantly in college.
Now, what's your favorite memory you've ever had in high school hockey? Is it an on ice memory or is it an on off ice memory? Because I know talking to some players, sometimes those bus rides are pretty memorable.
Yeah, I mean the classic answer would be in in my junior year we beat Bemidji in overtime and it was super close game and we have a little jug that goes back and forth. Whoever wins gets the jug, and we got the jug back, and it had been a while since we had it. But honestly, like my favorite would be just the overnights and the bus rides and the tournaments that we got to go to. It was so rare and just like, oh, we get to sleep over with like three of our teammates. This is awesome. And just like weekends like that were it was just so special to spend with my teammates. So I'd say that's my favorite.
Any good hotel or bus stories that you would like to share on the podcast? I'm assuming you might have a few good ones.
Um, I'm not sure. I just like the nights that we were getting back at 2 a.m. and everyone was just absolutely tired out of our minds and we just were laughing at anything and everything. I'd say those are I don't have any specific stories that I remember, but I'd say those are like my favorite memories from that.
Now, just talk about what it's like being a player in that Minnesota high school hockey scene and just the atmosphere you experience every day. Just because I've seen the clips from the state championship on YouTube and it looks pretty cool, just from an outsider's perspective, but it must be even cooler to be a player in that atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say the boys aspect is very, very awesome. I was able to be a spectator there, and I think seeing now and being a coach for the high school, it's getting there for the girls. And it wasn't too significant, for lack of a better term, when I was playing, just because just because that's how it was. But just like seeing the growth of the game of the girls side is just so special to see and see the opportunities for these girls, and it's amazing to see.
Yeah, I know. Is it weird talking to people who aren't from Minnesota like myself just about that hockey scene? Just because I feel like if you're not from Minnesota, it's kind of hard to understand just how important the state championship is.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it's like a little bubble we have, but no, it's super cool. It's just like an NHL atmosphere. Like my senior year, the boys went to state and were in the state championship game, and just it was a packed house, and it was like the experience for the even the girls too. Like the experience of getting there and being on that stage is just I feel like it would be like nothing else. And honestly, I'm hoping with how the team I'm coaching right now, with how it's looking, I think that's a goal that
Mhm.
we could attain, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and in that student section, do you remember any good student section chants that your team had, or was there just kind of the basic ones?
We we weren't too creative, and honestly, we were for the state championship game. We were like in the upper, like way corner, so no one could really hear us. So
Uh,
it was irrelevant that day. But we, I'm sure we had a couple, but nothing that I can remember.
Hey, it's still fun to be in that atmosphere. That's all that matters at the end of the day, but it's still fun to just be with your friends and just watch your hometown team play. It's something that some hockey players, especially around where I'm from, don't get to experience. So I think that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Now, just talk about your recruitment process with Bemidji. What was that like for yourself, and what made you want to go to that school versus other ones you might have looked at?
Yeah, so mine was kind of unconventional. I was a later recruit, relatively. Didn't start getting looked at to my junior year. I think that was honestly because of the lack of focusing on how to play. I had the skill, but I just didn't have what to do with that skill. Especially as a defenseman, I would stick handle too much in my zone and whatnot. But I started getting recruited junior year, and once I started to figure things out, and I actually wasn't originally recruited by Bemidji because it ended up being 3 other defensemen in my class. So I talked to a couple schools out east, a few around here, and ultimately committed to UND. And I was committed my whole senior year, and then actually March of my senior year, their program got cut, the women's hockey program at UND. So for a month after that, I was just scrambling. I didn't know where I was going to go. Like, I was probably going to go out east, but Bemidji ended up talking to me and was able to watch me play. And then gratefully, I was able to commit there in May of my senior year.
Yeah, when did they start showing interest in yourself after the UND program got cut?
So the day after, frantically, I was emailing a bunch of teams, and luckily, I got an email back from Coach Scanlon, and he said, "Yeah, we will talk about it." And that was honestly my light of hope the entire month that I was trying to decide, because everywhere else was full, and obviously the entire UND women's hockey team had to find a place too, and and all of the other recruits. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting hearing your perspective on that, just because recently, as you are probably aware of, Robert Morris had a very similar situation. When you saw that happen, did it bring back some memories of when UND cut its program? And just what's your thoughts on like schools just cutting their women's hockey programs just because, especially for North Dakota, because everyone that's like, at least from the men's side, it's like one of the best arenas in college hockey, has a great atmosphere. I'm surprised they don't have a women's program there.
Yeah, seeing Robert Morris was pretty sad. It was especially sad because an old recruit of UND, she was going to be my roommate at UND. She was a senior at Robert Morris, a captain there, and she was going to take her 5th year, but it got cut. And so it happened to her twice. It was pretty sad to see. And I have a couple other friends on the team, and just like, I mean, obviously there's logistics behind it, and obviously there's a lot. It's a complicated issue, and they just don't do that out of the blue. But it's really sad to see, and I've heard nothing but negative things about the UND team getting cut as well. It was an actually very good team at the time, and would have actually had some pretty good success. So it's sad to see, but honestly, I'm very grateful for ending up at Bemidji.
Yeah, no, I was just looking. I think 2 players from Wisconsin were like originally UND commits, and then they ultimately ended up winning the national championship this year. So it's just even today, there's still some recruits from UND that are doing great in the NCAA right now.
Yeah, for sure. There's quite a bit. Every UND player that found a place has made a significant impact on the team, which is really cool to see, and also kind of sad at the same time.
Oh yeah, that team could have been loaded if it stayed. Just to think about it, so it's kind of like a cool what if to think about from a college hockey perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, you mentioned how Jim Scanlon, your head coach, reached out to you in your senior year to be recruited with Bemidji. What was it like to play under him as a coach for your time in college, and how did he help your hockey development as a defenseman?
Yeah, he honestly a very good coach. I learned a significant amount of systems-based learning. We had a little binder where I was able to study and look at where to go in certain situations, different face-offs, and that's how my game I think grew the most. And whenever something would go wrong during a scrimmage or whatever in practice, he would blow the whistle and say, "This is what you do here." And he was very good about that, and really good about communicating what I needed to get better at. And then just hockey aside, X's and O's aside, just his family atmosphere and family emphasis, his love for us as players and as people, it made me honestly be a better person. And seeing how much he cared about us and how much he put into his job, it was just so inspiring. And I have not had any other coach like that, which is really awesome to see.
That's awesome to hear. And talking about your college hockey adjustment, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? Was it kind of just the speed of the game, or was it the physicality since you're going against much older players, especially when you're a freshman?
Honestly, I would say the biggest adjustment for a lot of us was going from everyone in high school was the best on the team, like had the most playing time on power play, everything. And then it was honestly a humbling experience getting to college. Like, you're not the best on the team. Like, you're probably not going to play every game. And I think just learning how to be a good teammate and to support, as much as I wanted to play, it's not going to help being frustrated about it. So just learning how to support the team and seeing how I could contribute even if I weren't playing a game and stuff like that. That was definitely a growing experience. And honestly, I'm really glad it happened, because it really helped me take a step back and realize, like, it's not all about hockey. It's about the success of the team and how I can contribute.
Hmm. And how do you adapt to a new role, especially since, like you said, you're like the best player in your high school team, and then all of a sudden you have to go to college and you're a third pairing defenseman. So how do you adjust to that new role, especially as a freshman, just because you're not kind of used to that?
I would say just focusing on controlling what I could control and doing just like the extra reps, asking the coach like what I can do, how can I get better, but also at some point being like, okay, I've done all that I can do at this point. It's up to the coaches, and they think like they know what's best for the team. They've been doing this for a while, so I'm gonna just have a positive attitude and go from there.
Now let's talk a little bit about some of the highlights from your time with Bemidji. So during your freshman year, you got to play against the Korean national team. What was it like playing against them, and how cool was it to help grow the game of hockey? Just because that seemed like such a cool experience, especially for your first game as a freshman.
Yeah, that was definitely experience in itself. I was uh, on jitters from my first game ever, and as everyone was. And no, it was very cool. It was definitely a new experience, and just like seeing how they're exactly like us, but they're just from miles and miles away. And like that's so important. And like there's a lot of emphasis in the United States about growing the game, but obviously there's so many areas that can be grown, and getting able to see that was so important.
What'd you learn from those players when talking to them after the game?
I actually didn't get to have any conversations with them, but some of us did. And just like getting to relate on that hockey level, like we're all just hockey players, like seeing that was super important.
Hmm. Yeah, I know, because I know some players who played the Korean national team that year said they got to talk to them after game. It was just cool to hear their hockey stories, just because even though even though you might be like playing against each other on the ice, you still have that same connection off the ice and on the ice as well. So I thought it was a kind of a cool thing. And I don't know if they're going to do it for this year's Olympics, but I hope they do, just because I think it's a cool thing to have, especially for college hockey players.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, also during your freshman season, you beat Minnesota Duluth in the first round of the WCHA playoffs. Just talk a little bit about that series and what it means to you, especially today, since Duluth is one of the powerhouse teams in the WCHA right now.
Yeah, that was an awesome experience. It was definitely cool to get BSU on the map. We had a very strong team that year, and just seeing all of our hard work pay off and seeing all of us come together and just be hyped in the locker room and really go towards that goal is really special. And that was a year where I played every other game, so I got to see it from playing the aspect and also see it from the sidelines. And getting to support in different roles was super important for me, and it was really cool to just experience that whole thing and get to do something we never actually got to do for the rest of my college career.
Yeah, I know. What was it like in the locker room after you winning that series? It must have been a pretty cool scene.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It was just a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of yelling. It was an awesome experience.
Obviously this past year's college hockey season was very different compared to other ones you experienced when you were a freshman, sophomore, and junior. So what were some of the challenges you had to experience this year, and how did you overcome those challenges of trying to play a college hockey season during a pandemic?
Yeah, so first of all, it was just we got a lot less than we were normally used to. We didn't get any of our trips to DC that we had planned. We didn't have any of our normal go out to eat. We didn't have nearly as many games. We didn't have as many team bonding experiences, socialization. It was just a lot was taken from what normally would have been. So that was a whole experience in itself. And just like, but at the end of the day, there's nothing you could do about it. Like it just allowed each one of us to really look and be like, okay, like this is a privilege. Like we could be just not playing hockey at all. Like we could just be going to college. And so just really working that gratefulness muscle is really something that all of us had to take a step back and be like, okay, this is, at least we get something. Like at least we were able to play, at least we're able to be with the girls some of the time, at least we're even able to be here. So that was one thing. And then just like the stress of all of the COVID, I think it took a toll on all of us. And it was just hard to navigate like the unknowns, as with a lot of people have said. It was hard to know anything, honestly, at some point. Like we had testing 3 times a week. We had 2 different quarantines. We were in quarantine for 28 days. Just like the uncertainty that was looming over our heads was just something that, honestly, it sucked at the time, but it was a growing experience at the end of the day. It was now, at least personally, I'm more able to look at a complicated situation and control what I can control and just have peace with the rest.
Yeah, how did you try to navigate your mental health during last season, especially like you said, there's so much unknowns with the virus itself, and you're trying not to get yourself sick and your teammates sick, and you're also trying to, grow as a player and try to win a championship. So how do you try to navigate that? And also you have school on top of that too, which some people might not realize as well.
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty tough at first. It was because it was just like a lot of stress and a lot of unknown, and just like seeing the importance of connection with the girls, sharing the struggle was huge, because trying to do it alone was never going to work. um, Reaching out to family and talking and reaching out to just friends helped a lot. And then just the classic like meditation, yoga, all those different things helped me a lot. And it was just very interesting to see how each individual person dealt with it and how it impacted and what would help them. So I think that's another thing I took away from it, is how to help other people when they're struggling in that way. So yeah, it was a whole thing. It was a lot, but ultimately I think a lot of us are better for it.
Yeah, you also didn't play in front of any fans. Was that tough? Especially since it was your senior year, you probably want your family in the stands just to watch some of your final games being played. So how did you deal with not having that crowd noise? And was that an adjustment for yourself? Because I don't know if Bemidji did this, but I feel like watching some of the games this past year, there was like music being played like during the game, or like there was crowd noise. Is that true, or was that just for the streaming audience?
Nope, that's true. It was like crowd cheering
It's like
noise.
the hiss. I don't know what it's
Yeah,
called, but I heard a little bit of it. I don't know if it was just like for streaming purposes or it was just for your guys.
yeah, it was. I don't think every place we played at had it,
I
but
thought Bemidji was the only one that I remember from doing that. Every other place had no noise at all.
yeah. So we had we had someone controlling the crowd noise. So like whenever there would be like a rush or something, they would like turn it up, and it was honestly, like, I love the idea, but it was very annoying. It was like not it was not a good idea. But I don't know, hopefully fingers crossed that won't have to happen again this year and whatnot. But yeah, it was tough to not have family. And once we got playing, we didn't really notice if there was a crowd or not. But just like getting to wave to my parents in the stands and during warm-ups and stuff like that, that was kind of a sad deal. And like it's their lives too. Like all the families want to come and watch, especially with our team having all of our at least most of our girls being from Minnesota and around here. So that part was tough, but I guess do what you can with what you have. We were able to have a couple games that our parents were able to come, so that was nice.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good that you got to have that, especially as a senior. So, but I'm with you. I kind of preferred. I don't know. I know some people like the crowd noise, and I guess it helps with like the viewing experience. But I feel like playing, it's just better without any noise instead of the fake crowd noise. I think you want the authenticity, and I kind of liked hearing some of the conversations that happened on the ice and just all the communication that happened from a fan perspective. I think it was cool to hear just what goes on the ice, which you don't normally get to hear in a regular hockey game.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, you also had to adjust to many schedule changes as well. How'd you mentally stay prepared for all those changes and postponements that happened to your schedule, especially since it was very, I don't know, kind of fluctuating, if that's the correct word. I don't know, like, how'd you deal with all that?
Yeah, at first it was pretty frustrating just because all of us wanted to play and all of us were already stressed out and kind of sick of this, but at some point I just kind of became detached because if I attached myself to hope that a game would come and then a quarantine would come again, it would just be devastating. Well, not devastating, I would survive, but it would just suck again. So honestly, just like detaching from the outcome and being like grateful for if we get one game this season, that's awesome. But if we don't, like, then that's okay. So just being grateful for whatever we got is kind of what helped me a lot.
Yeah, and 3-on-3 overtime was also introduced to college hockey this year. As an offensive defenseman, what was that like for yourself to get more space on the ice and have more goal scoring opportunities?
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite parts of playing this year. It was just really cool to be able to have space to think and to see plays develop, and especially as a defenseman, I was able to almost, especially when we're in the offensive zone, bring it out of the offensive zone and kind of quarterback a play and just like see how things are changing and see how things are moving. That was really cool to be able to do that, and yeah, just be able to rush up the ice and have room to do it. It was a cool experience, and I'm grateful we were able to do it.
How do you maintain possession of the puck in the offensive zone when you're trying to make line changes as well? Like, what's the coaching strategy behind that? Because I think that's the kind of the biggest part of 3-on-3 is you want to maintain possession of the puck so the other team stays tired, can't do line changes, and so your team can do line changes and create plays and try to get that goal to win the game.
Yeah, so communication is a huge one. We definitely had a couple breakdowns where we would be like, oh, all three of us are going to go, okay, here's a breakaway.
Hmm.
So um I would say just making sure everyone is on the same page, and obviously making sure we have possession of it, and when the D brings it back, it's easier for the forwards to switch, and when a forward would have it, it's easier for the D to switch. So just making sure everyone's on the same page and only doing one at a time is really what helped us most.
Now, just talk about being a leader on the team and what did you learn about yourself being a leader on the team, especially last year with all the challenges like you talked about? And how did you compare your leadership skills as a senior in high school versus a senior in college?
I would say I learned quite a bit actually. Wasn't perfect by any means, especially during the pandemic. But compared to when I was in high school I was just the hard worker that was just trying to play D1. And like obviously I cared for my teammates and tried to serve them and stuff, but especially coming to Bemidji, and I think having my so many amazing teammates just helped me define who I wanted to be, and I really wanted to be just like a servant leader. And I think that's honestly what's drawn me to med school too, is I want to continue to do that as a physician. And I focused on others more, which motivated me more to lead. And I still led by example and worked hard and on the ice and in the classroom, but yeah, just that development of the personal side is I think what's changed the most.
And how are you going to use that leadership skills that you learned from being from last year to being a coach now with Morehead?
Yeah, just be a good role model in how I am as a person, and just being able to use that love of service for showing the girls how to do a slap shot or do a certain play and stuff like that. I think that's going to motivate me the most to really help the girls get to where they want to go.
Now, how'd you try to help the freshmen this past year transition into college hockey in such a difficult time? Because I feel like that was probably the most challenging part of being a leader on the team is just trying to get the freshmen used to being a college athlete because it was so different from when you were a freshman with just how things were.
Yeah, so that was honestly one of my least favorite parts is I wasn't able to interact with them as much as I normally would because I had those seniors when I came in. I had those seniors to help me out and to talk to me and help me through everything. And we weren't as able to, but the time I did get with them, I just made sure to build their confidence because that's the huge thing coming into college hockey, and make sure that they know that there's a safe place with me and with a lot of our other teammates that they can go to if they're struggling with, yes, things on the ice, but also school or relationship issues and all that stuff. And just having that safe space, I think, is what I tried to do the most.
Now, your team didn't qualify for the WCHA playoffs your senior year. How'd you deal with not making the playoffs since it was your senior year, and especially since you only won one playoff series when you were a freshman and then never really got that success after that?
Yeah, it was kind of, we didn't have the best year this year, and we kind of knew that it was coming, that the playoffs were going to be like that. So we just kind of did what we can. We tried to figure out what was off and what was going wrong, and like just kind of took it game by game. And we kind of, by the end, we did what we could and tried our best, but we pretty much accepted that that was going to be it, and that that was the last game we would ever play for some of us. And that was actually an interesting experience because I would have never thought that my last game ever playing would be something that I knew it was going to be my last game. I thought it was going to be like, oh, it's a playoff game, like a heartbreaking loss, but like it was just such a weird experience that we're done. And yeah.
Yeah, I know. I talked to a few players from the Yukon team, and there was a few years ago where the team didn't make the Hockey East playoffs. However, they won their final game at home in overtime, so it's kind of a good sense of closure knowing that that was their final game. Did you feel the same way, knowing that it was going to be your final game, so you kind of had the sense of closure when your career ended?
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of helped with the nerves of the last game, and it helped me just enjoy the experience and not really attach to winning or losing, just kind of enjoy the last ride. And it was a little bit more emotional though. It was very tough knowing that it was our last game. Like during the pregame prayer, I literally broke down and I was just crying, and everyone kind of had tears in their eyes the whole time. So it was just it was different, but it was also, there was a sense of peace that came with it.
And when you look back on your college career now, what do you take away from it?
Oh, quite a bit actually. I have some lifelong friends. I have some amazing people that I've met. I have 3 coaches, actually 4 coaches in the time I was there, that I know would do anything for any of us. And I saw their leadership, which will help me be a coach for the girls I'm coaching now. And just developing as a player, I became probably the best player that I could be wherever I would have gone, which I'm really grateful for. And just developing as a person, that's really what Bemidji really helped me to become. And I don't think I would be pursuing medical school at this point if I didn't go to Bemidji. So just an amazing experience, and I'm grateful for everything it's given me.
Yeah, no, shout out Coach Terrace. I had her on the podcast before, so she might be listening. So shout out to Emma if she's listening. But she's an incredible coach and also a great player as well.
Yes, and an amazing person. We've gone full circle. She was actually a counselor when I was in middle school, high school of mine. Then we were teammates when I was a freshman and she was a senior, and now she was an assistant coach of mine this year, which was really cool to see.
That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you about some of the teammates you got to play with. The first one is Claire DeGeorge. Obviously, she's one of the best players in college hockey. You're seeing that now with just the first 2 games she played with Ohio State this past weekend. But what was it like being her teammate with Bemidji, and what's the best goal you've seen her score from your time in college hockey?
Oh, it was awesome. Claire is one of my best friends. We were able to be roommates sophomore year, and we got super close, and we're very like-minded in a lot of things. So it's really cool. It was really cool to see her success and see how she's just so hardworking in on the ice, and honestly in everything she does. She was a nursing major, so she obviously had a lot of work in college, and she was constantly studying, like constantly taking care of herself and taking care of working hard on the ice and in the workout room and stuff like that. So it was just a really good example for the rest of our team to have of just that work ethic and that focus that she has. It's just really special to see, and I know she's making that impact at Ohio too.
Now, another teammate I want to ask you about is Lindsay Featherstone. What was it like being her teammate both on and off the ice? Because in my opinion, she's probably my favorite Bemidji State player right now. I had her on the podcast, incredible person, but also one of the most underrated players in college hockey. She's the best. So I hope she's listening, but I just want to shout out to her as well.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. We're really close friends. We were roommates my junior and senior year, and we got super close, and she's just a hoot. Like I could talk to her for days. She's awesome. Yeah, and very underrated, I would say. She has, I feel like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I feel like she has so much potential, and she can make a real big difference on Bemidji this year as far as goals and just power play and just being a really real impact player, because she's never had that opportunity to shine. Like I know that she could, as far as like power play and penalty kill and stuff like that. So I'm really hoping that she'll get that opportunity this year.
Yeah, I hope so too. And it'll be awesome to see her score some goals. But like I said before, she's a great person. So shout out to Lindsay if she's listening to this podcast. So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I just ask you some non-hockey questions just to get to know you a little bit off the ice. My first question to you is, what music do you like to listen to?
I would say country, but also whatever sounds good. So like singer songwriter stuff, EDM from working out, stuff like that. So, but mostly country.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place myself personally, but I do like a good country song here and there. Who's your like go-to artist? Anyone in particular, or just kind of whatever's on the radio?
I like Luke Combs and also Jordan Davis. I feel like Jordan Davis is very underrated. He's one of my favorites.
I've never heard of Jordan Davis before, so I definitely gotta check him out after this interview. But I'm a big Thomas Rhett guy. That's like my go-to country artist. I think he's the best in my opinion.
All right, he's very good.
Now, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself and why?
I'd say Jennifer Lawrence, just because of the way she is, like her personality and stuff like that. I think she's just so funny, and it helps that she's brunette too. But just like the personality aspect, I feel like she'd be good at that.
I think for myself, Tom Brady. He's not like a quote unquote actor, but I think it would be awesome for myself to say that Tom Brady played me in a movie. So that's why I'm going with that. And I don't know, maybe there's some similarities, I guess, from our looks. So I think that's who I would go with
Yeah,
personally.
I think so too.
Now, who is your favorite non-hockey athlete?
I'd say Simone Biles, just because she's amazing at what she does, but also obviously the recent news about her prioritizing her health and stuff like that. I think she's a really good role model for a lot of young girls.
That's awesome. And then for myself, probably like Lionel Messi. I think he's a really cool guy. I think soccer is an underrated sport here in the U.S., so it's fun to watch him play, and I think he's one of the best to do it. So probably him.
Cool.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
I would say when people talk over people or just fail to listen in general, just kind of grinds my gears.
Well, hopefully I'm listening to you loud and clear on this podcast. So if I haven't done that, or at least if it haven't seemed like I've done that, I apologize for giving you a big pet peeve in this interview.
No, you're doing well. It's all good.
I guess for myself, it's probably bad drivers or just traffic. It irks me,
hmm
especially since I feel like more people are driving. Like, I don't know what it's like in Minnesota, but here in New England, the traffic is just so bad now because just there's so many people on the road. It's insane. So that just grinds my gears. I can have a whole hour just talking about how much I hate traffic and bad drivers.
No, that's a bad one for sure.
Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
I would say Simone Biles again. I was gonna pick a different one, but I think it'd just be really cool to see into her just upbringing and how driven she was and how just to achieve that greatness, and also just to how to know when to give yourself a break and how to prioritize your overall health and stuff like that. I think that'd be really cool to pick her brain on that.
I think for myself, probably. That's tough. Probably Brad Marchand, just because I think he's a cool hockey player. Seems like a funny guy. Would be a cool dinner experience, because I'm not just thinking about the conversation, just the jokes that will be had. So I feel like that would be a fun lunch for me.
Yeah, cool.
Now, what is the most interesting thing you've seen or read this week?
Oh, I would say I'm a nerd, so I would say a journal article that I was looking at said that the effects that melatonin can have on COVID-19 and how it has like anti-inflammatory and antioxidative effects. So it can actually help ease the burden of COVID-19 on the body, which is super cool, whether that be like natural production or supplementing melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Is melatonin like the skin? I might sound like an idiot saying
Oh,
that, but is
no, no,
that
no,
what it
it's
is?
okay. That's melanin. Melatonin is it's it's something that's produced in the body to help you sleep. And some people can,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I apologize for messing that up. I'm a college student, and I definitely did not sound like one right there. So I apologize about that.
No, it's all good.
I think the most interesting thing I read, there's a few. One was there was an article about how there's like less men going to college than ever before, and like the impact that could have. I just thought that was interesting to read, just because how much things have changed from like the 1950s. And
Hmm.
then I don't know if you're into sports psychology or not, but I was watching this video about this guy from like the German soccer team who scored the game-winning goal in the World Cup final, and how that one great moment kind of like changed his career because he could never live up to that one spectacular moment, and how it affected his health just because like he could never live up to that big moment. So I just thought it was interesting to see, just because like whenever you think of like us like kind of the yips in sports, it's usually from a bad experience, but it could also happen from a great experience as well.
Yeah, interesting. Huh. I'll have to read that sometime.
Yeah, I'll definitely send it to you if you want to see it. I thought it was pretty interesting myself.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, the mental aspect of the game is huge.
And I think it's getting more prevalent now, which is cool to see. I know Nathan McKinnon specifically has like a mental coach. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if all D1 schools have like a psychologist on the team, but it's something that's definitely becoming more apparent, especially in hockey, I've noticed.
Yeah, for sure. I actually spoke with one. We don't have a team one, but I actually spoke with one. I met with one for about a year straight, which actually helped me quite a bit.
hmm What did you guys talk about, if you don't mind sharing?
No, not at all. We talked about just how to focus when you're playing, because a lot of distractions can come in, especially with just like a mind that's constantly going. And just like how to focus on, we talked about like a focus window. And when I'm playing, just focus on one thing. Like if I'm defending a one-on-one, focus on their chest or focus on making sure they don't get by and stuff like that. And that really helped me train my brain to constantly do one thing at a time. And it helped my game significantly. And it also helped with, we talked about after I was done with practice or after I was done with the game, I would pick out 3 things that I did well just to help with confidence and stuff. And I actually noticed during future practices and future games that I would be more inclined to look at the positives and stuff. So just little things like that help my confidence and really help my game quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, no, confidence is like a huge part of the game that I think people don't realize, because it's so hard to gain confidence throughout the season, but it's also very hard. It's also very easy to lose confidence during the season. So that's part of the game that's tough, especially when, during a season, there's so many ups and downs. So trying to navigate and maintain consistent confidence is very difficult, even for some of the best players in the world.
Very true.
Now, who was the funniest on the Bemidji State women's hockey team?
Actually, one of our freshmen, she came in and just had her full personality out, which was awesome to see. I wish I could have been like that. Her name's Chloe Lund. She's a defenseman, sophomore defenseman this year, but just no filter on the kid. But it's so funny. No matter what she says, it's just bound to get us laughing.
Best trash talker on the team, and what was the best chirp you've ever heard that player say?
That was Mac Lange, one of my fellow defensemen, and she I probably shouldn't say some of the trash talk that she would say, because she knew, like, for some reason, she knew the personal lives of all the other teams. So she would really get some good digs, which was like, I'm glad you're on my team and not on the other team.
Yeah, no, I was never the best trash talker myself playing, so I just kind of leave that up to some other people. Some people, I think if you're good at it, I respect it a lot, but like there's some people who just don't know how to do it. And it's just like you gotta just be quiet throughout the game. It's just not working.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you obviously had the best style on the team, but besides yourself, who had the best style on Bemidji State?
I mean, I tried. I wouldn't say I had the best.
Oh no, you did. Don't try to underestimate yourself.
Reese Hunt, I would say she just had a knack. She had like an eye for style. We always talked about clothes and all this like designing stuff, and just on and off the ice, she has, I'd say, the best style.
So let's get back to some hockey questions now. My first question to you is obviously, you're a coach now, coaching high schoolers. So what advice would you give those players who are trying to pursue a D1 college hockey career?
Yeah, I would say just be that one that works hard in every area, not just hockey. Because when you get to college, you're going to need to work hard in school. You're going to need to work hard to maintain your mental health and be a good socializer and be there for your family and stuff like that. So making sure you take care of nutrition, sleep, learning the game, and all of that, I think having that mindset of just being the best you can be in all of what you do is really going to pay off in college. And it's really going to get coaches to notice too. And then also, another huge piece of advice would be work on learning the game and work on the mental aspect, because that's something I didn't learn until college, and it helped me tremendously as a player. And I think I would have been a much better player in high school if I would have worked on it then, and just worked on confidence and worked on really how to control my thoughts and how to be directed in all of my thoughts and actions and stuff. So I think that that's something that I would really emphasize if you're trying to become a Division I player.
And what should be done to help grow the women's game in general?
I'd say starting from the very beginning, I would give them equal opportunities, and also just having role models in place. There are a lot of men that coach girls, which is great, but I think having that role model in place is really huge for girls to look up to, and for girls to be exposed to realize that they can get to the highest level, and that's where they can go, and it gives them motivation right from the start.
Well, I think that's a great way to end off this interview. But before we do that, I know I mentioned a lot of your teammates throughout the interview, but if there's anyone I forgot to mention, do you have any shout outs you'd like to give to your former teammates, friends, family members, any of your current players maybe on Morehead? I don't know. Just
Uh,
anyone in particular.
I would say, I mean, I already mentioned, I would say actually all the people I played with, they've impacted me in so many ways. And then just specifically, I would say at U of M School of Dentistry, we got Abby Haluska and Mac Lange, who are studying to be dentists. Emma Terrace, just the assistant coach right now, who's impacted me so much. Summer Thibodeau, she's now a student of physical therapy at DMU, which is really cool. And then Claire, of course, one of my best friends at Ohio State.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kara, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best, and I hope you get into medical school. I know you're going to do great things in your future after hockey. And just thank you for taking time of your schedule and coming on today. It really means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Now, one question, one